Hello everyone. In this video we are going to discuss about third ventricle. Now it's a cavity of diencephalon. So all around it is related to the thalami, like thalamus itself, hypothalamus, epithalamus, etc. So this is the outline of third ventricle. Now it is sagittally oriented cavity, and above it is in connection with the lateral ventricle. See this via interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. See, this is the foramen and the probe is going inside the lateral ventricle, and behind it is related to the cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius, and through which it is connected to the cavity of fourth ventricle. So this is the outline of third ventricle. As I mentioned, it is sagittally oriented. So in a section only half of the ventricle which is exposed is seen. So if we compare it with the opposite cerebral hemisphere, so here this is the outline of third ventricle, and if we join these two, then now you can imagine it is sagittally oriented cavity. So when we take a section, it will divide into equal halves. Now if you want to see it from below, then we need to remove the brainstem plus cerebellum, and we can see it from below in an intact brain. So let me show you in an intact brain where the brainstem and cerebellum has been removed. So straight away you can see this is the third ventricle. You can see the cavity, and this is the splenium of corpus callosum. So you can correlate it with the section. So here is the splenium, and if you see it from below, this is how it looks like. So in front of it, you can easily make out the sagittally oriented third ventricle. Now the third ventricle has got roof, floor, anterior, posterior wall and lateral wall. Before learning the walls and the boundaries, let me just give you orientation of the relevant structures. So this is corpus callosum. Here will be the rostrum. This is genu, body and splenium. This is the cavity of lateral ventricle. Here is the fornix. Fornix is having crus, body and column. So here is a column of fornix. See this. And behind to the column you can see interventricular foramen. This gap is filled by septum pellucidum. Let me show you in another section. So here you can see the septum pellucidum, and deep inside will be the cavity of lateral ventricle. See this. Again, this is fornix, and here is its column. This is column of fornix which are diverging, and this is interventricular foramen. Now behind to that, this is the thalamus itself. Okay, this is the pulvinar of thalamus, posteriormost end, and between thalamus and the body of fornix you can see a gap. So here lies tila choroidea, and within tila choroidea there lies choroid plexus of third ventricle, which will secrete CSF into the cavity of third ventricle. Now this is the territory of thalamus, and the thalami of right and left side, they are connected by the sheet of or band of grey matter. This is termed as interthalamic adhesion. So when you see another section like this, so both the thalami are connected with each other by this interthalamic adhesion. Now below to that you can appreciate a sulcus. Okay, this is termed as hypothalamic sulcus, which extends from interventricular foramen to the commencement of cerebral aqueduct. So above to that is the thalamus, and below to this hypothalamic sulcus is the hypothalamus. So this is the territory of hypothalamus. Deep inside there will be nuclei of hypothalamus, multiple nuclei of hypothalamus. This is the ependyma, which is lining the cavity of ventricle. So beneath the ependyma you will get multiple nuclei of hypothalamus. Now this cerebral aqueduct. So this will be the tectum, and it is made up of superior and inferior colliculi. See this. Above to that, this is the territory of epithalamus, which is made up of pineal gland, posterior commissure and habenular commissure. So here will be the stalk of pineal, and the pineal gland is removed, but let me show you in another specimen. So here you can appreciate this is the pineal gland, which is found in a depression formed by upper limb of the cruciate sulcus, cruciform sulcus. So these two are superior colliculi and it is intimately related to the superior colliculi. So this is pineal gland, which is having two lamina, superior and inferior. Superior lamina is having habenular commissure and inferior lamina is having posterior commissure. Okay, this you can see the aqueduct of Sylvius, and in front of it this is the tegmentum of the midbrain. Let me show you in sagittal section. So here this is aqueduct of Sylvius and this is the midbrain tegmentum. In front of it there will be substantia nigra, and this particularly this structure is the crus cerebri. So this one is the midbrain tegmentum. Now this rostrum of the corpus callosum, and if you trace it behind you will reach up to another commissure. This is anterior commissure. So over here in relation to the inferior lamina of pineal you will get posterior commissure, and this is anterior commissure. Okay, it is related to posterior, it is related to this column of fornix, and still behind you will get interventricular foramen, and this is lamina terminalis. See this. Below this is optic chiasma. See this. This is optic chiasma. This is the stump of optic nerve. This is optic tract. So this portion is the optic chiasma, and behind to that you will get all the structures forming content of interpendicular fossa like tuber cinereum and stalk of pituitary or infundibulum. Then this is mammillary body. See again from below. Now you can appreciate this is mammillary body. Here will be tuber cinereum and stalk of pituitary. This is optic chiasma. This is optic tract, and behind mammillary body over here you will get posterior perforated substance. See this over here, and this is the midbrain tegmentum. So if you are aware with all the structures, all the relevant structures, then you will able to easily understand the boundaries of third ventricle. Now let's understand individual boundary of third ventricle. So as I mentioned, third ventricle has got anterior wall, posterior wall, roof, floor and lateral wall. Now let's first see the anterior wall. Anteriorly it is bounded by column of fornix, anterior commissure and lamina terminalis. The floor is formed from before backward by optic chiasma, stalk of pituitary and tuber cinereum, mammillary body, posterior perforated substance and formation of tegmentum of midbrain. So these many structures are forming floor. In posterior wall, commencement of aqueduct of Sylvius, inferior lamina of the pineal gland containing posterior commissure and pineal gland itself. So here is the posterior wall. Now in the roof you can see portion of choroid plexus. Okay, so roof extends from this interventricular foramen to the superior lamina of the pineal gland containing habenular commissure. So this is the roof, and here lies tila choroidea, which is double fold of pia mater, and within the tila choroidea you will get tufts of capillaries or capillary fringes forming choroid plexus. These are branches of anterior choroidal artery, and they are lying over here and they are secreting CSF. So from choroid plexus lying in the roof covered by ependyma within tila choroidea secreting CSF from the roof within the third ventricular cavity. So here is a roof and it includes superior lamina of the pineal containing habenular commissure. So here will be the roof. Next is lateral wall. As we have discussed, this is the thalamus and below is the hypothalamus. Both are separated by hypothalamic sulcus extending from interventricular foramen to the cerebral aqueduct, and the thalamus itself is connected to its opposite or to its counterpart by interthalamic adhesion. Let me show you interthalamic adhesion in another specimen. So here from the floor you can appreciate interthalamic adhesion. See this, these are two thalami and connected by this interthalamic adhesion. So when we take a section, the stumps of this adhesion are seen in sagittal section. So this is of left side, and I wanted to show you the interthalamic adhesion. See this is interthalamic adhesion. It's a bundle of gray matter connecting thalami of both the sides traversing the ventricular cavity. So within the ventricular cavity we will get this interthalamic adhesion, and over here also you can clearly make out the hypothalamic sulcus dividing the lateral wall into larger postero-superior part and smaller antero-inferior part. So deep to this region lies the hypothalamus and its nuclei. So this is about lateral wall. Now let's understand the recesses related to the third ventricle. It is having 5 recesses from before backward. The first one is in relation to the optic chiasma, which is situated at the junction of anterior wall and floor. This is the lamina terminalis, which is forming anterior wall, and this is optic chiasma, it is forming the floor. So in between these two you can see a blind diverticulum. This is chiasmatic recess. Behind to that, in relation to the stalk of pituitary, this is the infundibular recess. Above, in relation to the anterior commissure, this you can see anterior commissure, and this is the diverging column of fornix. So between diverging column of fornix, behind this anterior commissure, somewhere over here will be the anterior recess, or it is also termed as vulva of ventricle. Similarly, posteriorly, between two lamina of the pineal gland, superior and inferior lamina, there is pineal recess, and above to the superior lamina there will be suprapineal recess. So by and large there are such 5 recesses related to the third ventricle. Now we know the floor. This is optic chiasma. Here will be the tuber cinereum and infundibular stalk, which are removed, and these two are mammillary body. Behind will be the posterior perforated substance. So this is basically nothing but contents of the interpeduncular fossa. Here we have removed the crus cerebri, but what I wanted to show you is this is the floor of the third ventricle, and behind you can see the cavity of third ventricle. This is interthalamic adhesion, and if we reflect this optic chiasma, you can still appreciate the cavity of third ventricle. See this. Now if you want to see it properly, then what we can do is we can cut this floor and we can directly access the third ventricle from below. So let me just cut the structures forming the floor. Here will be the posterior perforated substance, then these two are mammillary body. So in between I am cutting. Here will be the tuber cinereum and infundibular stalk, and this is the optic chiasma. So through optic chiasma I am cutting, and that will separate the floor. And now if we retract these structures, we can see the cavity deep inside. See this. Now you can clearly make out interthalamic adhesion. Can you see this? And you can clearly see the cavity of third ventricle. Now let me just zoom in a bit to show you the cavity. So here is the interthalamic adhesion. See this is the cavity, and these are two diverging column of fornix. See this. Let me cut this portion of the floor to expose the cavity completely. So here I am cutting portion of floor. Now you can clearly see the cavity. In front you can see diverging column of fornix. See, these two are. okay, and this is anterior commissure. So in between these two, here is the anterior recess. Say this. Let me zoom in a bit. Say this. These two are diverging column of fornix, and this is the anterior commissure. So in between this is the anterior recess. This is lamina terminalis. So I think if you have understood the boundaries properly, then it will be very easy for you to understand it from below. This is choroid plexus, okay, and here will be the interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. So the probe will be inside the lateral ventricle, see on both the sides, and this is the interthalamic adhesion. If I cut this, then the cavity will be exposed completely. Let me cut it. So I am cutting interthalamic adhesion, and now I can reflect the cavity completely. So what you can now observe is the body of fornix. This entirely is the body of fornix, and then they diverge to form column of fornix, and behind here you will get crus of fornix. Say this. There is a little bit of fluid, let me just remove it. So here this is the crus of fornix, they unite to form body of fornix, then they diverge to form column of fornix in front of the anterior end of the thalamus to form interventricular foramen. Okay, this is the thalamus, here will be the hypothalamus, below the hypothalamic sulcus. See this. So this is the territory of third ventricle. And here you can appreciate the splenium of corpus callosum. So that again you can see from postero-superior aspect. See this is corpus callosum connecting to cerebral hemispheres, and you can appreciate now the splenium. See here, this is body, and from in front if you see, you will get genu of corpus callosum. See this. This is not related to the third ventricle, but I just wanted to give you an orientation of the corpus callosum, how it is lying, how it is joining the hemispheres. Now you can clearly make out genu and rostrum of corpus callosum, okay, in front of anterior commissure. So from before backward we will get genu, then rostrum, anterior commissure, then these are column of fornix, body of fornix, crus of fornix, and splenium of corpus callosum. So this is how in the midline we get these structures from before backwards. Now in another specimen I wanted to show you the choroid plexus. See over here, vascular fringe. So it will be situated in the roof. Here will be the tila choroidea, double layer, and the same choroid plexus will also enter into the lateral ventricle through this choroid fissure. Say this, you can see the gap. See the gap. If I remove the vessels, you will able to see the C-shaped fissure. This is termed as choroid fissure. So here deep inside will be the cavity of lateral ventricle, and the choroid plexus will also enter through this gap, through this choroid fissure. So across the roof there is tila choroidea, and within the tila choroidea there will be choroid plexus that is also cut into equal half. And here you can appreciate anterior commissure, and here will be the posterior commissure. This is mammillary body, interthalamic adhesion and hypothalamic sulcus, very clearly observed. So this is regarding boundaries and recesses of the third ventricle. Hope you understood well. Thanks for watching.